Five Nights at Freddy's. Does it even need an introduction? 10 years, 16 games, 3 DLCs, almost 25 books, and possibly the biggest horror franchise in the world. You can't even go outside without seeing it anymore. Anyway, to start this channel, I'm trying my hand out at the definitive Five Nights at Freddy's timeline. This is a pre-secret of the Mimic timeline, so the entire beginning is probably going to be retconned in April, but that's okay. Thank you, Steel Wool. I do take a few creative liberties in this, and I'll try to point those out as I go along. Some I've gotten from other fast tubers over the past 10 years, and if I remember where I heard them from, I'll state that, but I'll try to stick to the canon timeline as closely as possible. If need be, I'll make a follow-up video with all the evidence behind my claims. You know, that's enough stalling. The video's probably already long enough as is. I haven't recorded it all yet, so I only see the script. But let's dive right into the Five Nights at Freddy's pre-secret of the Mimic timeline. Whether you're here looking for a recap or just a new fan learning the story. But if you do enjoy or find this useful, hit that like button so YouTube knows to recommend me to other people like you. And if you want to see more content like this, hit that subscribe button. I have a little ad before we start. I'd like to announce something. If I can manage to get this channel monetized, I'd like to try writing my own fan story of the series, a free one in Google document. My dream is to be a writer and or actor, so I have quite a bit of experience. It'd be adapting the timeline into a few books unless Scott deliberately told me not to, of course. I think a cool scenario would be Scott letting me work as one of his writers or adding me to the Fanverse initiative. I'd be releasing chapters bi-weekly alongside an audiobook voiced by people of my choosing. If you'd like to audition for the characters, you can join my Discord and have a one-on-one chat with me. It'd start on Fnaf 1 with Michael, who I will probably be voicing. I've found a way to make each game interesting and not just read about some guy sitting in an office for 5 to 7 nights, too, with unique gimmicks to each game. I have to wait till I get monetized because this will take up a majority of my time, but I am incredibly passionate about it. A lot of William's past I take creative liberties in. That'll be until we get Secret of the Mimic, which may show us more. So I won't point out every little thing, and we won't go incredibly into detail till Michael's story begins in what I call Chapter 2. But we do need to get through this sort of prologue. I've said a lot already, but let's get into the story. Chapter 1. The Origins of a Killer. Starting in 1968 Utah, William Afton, a young entrepreneur from England with a passion for entertainment, inspired by those who had come before him, such as Walt Disney, who brought dreams to life. Matthew Patrick first stated this, and I liked it quite a bit, so I took it. But when he reached the States, he'd start a pizzeria called Fredbear's Family Diner, with characters as suits who'd entertain as people ate their pizza, characters he had drawn as he'd grown up. At the start, he only had 2 characters, Fredbear and Spring Bonnie. They came in the form of 2 stitched-together outfits William and employees could wear. William taking a liking to Spring Bonnie especially, a character he made in his childhood and one he kept adding to as he grew older. It got cut out. Thank you. Taking a look at William's childhood, we can tell he didn't exactly have the best family life, an abusive father and a dead or runaway mother. William escaped reality by going to the circus. He loved the clowns, something we see him take clear inspiration from later in life. In William's journals from his teen years, you can see where a lot of his characters evolved from, but eventually William ran from his home before he was even an adult, in broad daylight at that. The neighbors all saw, but it was a regular thing for the Afton family. For William to run like that, it was the final straw. William's father had taken it too far that day. Taking a step forward from William's childhood and going into his adult years, the following year after Fredbear's opened, 1969, Michael was born. With the community has labeled William scapegoat child, and arguably the protagonist of Five Nights at Freddy's, especially when looking at how many games he's been the main character of. 1972, Utah. William strives for 4 years, unrivaled providing entertainment and food. Little did he know the man who would put him out of business had been working on something massive. A rival chain opened. It was called Chica's Party World, starring Chica the Chicken, Happy Frog, Orville Elephant, Mr. Hippo, and what hurt most of all, Ned Bear, a complete ripoff of his Fredbear. The man who ran this company went by Henry Emily, a 22-year-old with a degree in robotics and engineering, using animatronics to entertain his audience while they ate. It didn't require any human resources whatsoever. They just stood on this stage and put on a show with external battery packs that needed to be replaced every once in a while. Chica's Party World has everything over Fredbear's Family Diner. The only critique William could think of is the lack of life and creativity in the animatronics compared to his characters and the people who performed in them, but over the course of the few years, surely William was put out of business. Charlie Emily is born this year. 1975, Utah. William applied for bankruptcy. Chica's Party World was thriving when he should have been. That was until Henry went to Wembley and bought him out. The audacity! How could the man who stole from him save him? William was embarrassed but thankful at the same time. This started the blossoming friendship between William and Henry, the two men who would bring Fazbear Entertainment into the mainstream and build a multi-million, that was too much emphasis, dollar company. Their strengths were unstoppable together. William's creativity and dreams with Henry's intelligence and robotics and money. In the years following, even fusing their initial ideas to make the Springlock suits. These suits could be swapped between animatronic mode and suit mode. William's idea going into the new restaurant, the reopening of Fredbear's Family Diner. These did have a few kinks though. Dave Afton is born this year, William's forgotten child and the child who would kickstart the events of Five Nights at Freddy's. 1979, Utah. Fredbear's reopens and business is booming for the franchise, while Chica's Party World shut down due to poor feedback towards the animatronics, apart from Chica herself, who was now being put into a spin-off restaurant called Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, starring Freddy the Bear, Bonnie the Bunny, Chica the Chicken, and Foxy the Fox, who were all designed by William himself, apart from, of course, Chica. To help advertise the new restaurant, it even got its own cartoon, called Freddy and Friends on Tour. It's midnight. This year, the majority of Edwin Murray's story takes place. These are the basics. Someone more qualified could tell you something different, or you could just watch, there's this music video, it basically explains the story. It's called Jackie's Box, but what I got is he's a fast technician who's a bit behind on his work, distracted with his child, so he made a program named Mimic AI and put it into a machine for his child to play with. It was a win-win. His child got a friend and a babysitter while he worked. The one problem was that Mimic didn't ensure his child's safety. One day, Edwin's son ran into the road and got hit by a car chasing his ball. My name is David. Later that week, Mimic was mimicking the actions of David, things he used to do, leading to Edwin bursting out into anger and beating the Mimic into the ground before leaving. I definitely think we could see Edwin turn out to be Henry in Secret of the Mimic in a whole different year. The Mimic would also just be a much better antagonist if he was created by Henry. Mimic being Henry's creation could also explain why he was in the Fnaf 6 location. I can imagine Security Puppet turning into Mimic or something. I'm sure they have something cooler planned either way. I don't want to look stupid in a few months when the game releases, so I won't make any more predictions. I listened to a bit of Jackie's Box, and it's pretty peak. I can't say any more. Best song ever made. I don't think there's anything that rivals it. But a few months go by, and Edwin left the Mimic in the house with fast technicians trying to see what happened to Edwin, but each were killed one by one, being beaten in the same way Edwin beat the Mimic. It eventually being captured by Fazbear Entertainment, where they used its programming to learn about learn in the cameras being used in the camera system of Fnaf 2 Pizzeria. This story is likely going to change a lot over the upcoming year. I can see Mimic being Henry's creation and all to keep Charlie safe at the pizzeria, but that's speculation. I really hope so though, because that'd be awesome. I hope the best for the franchise, but I could make a whole video on that, the parallels between Henry and Edwin. I'd have to read the book, and I'm willing to do it, but I may be making that soon. This all just makes sense. At this point in the series, Henry and William wouldn't have any technicians. It's a pre-secret of the Mimic timeline, but I'll make a video on Henry, maybe making the Mimic, and being the Edwin of the universe. Holy moly, is it the year? 1983 Utah? It's time for the big one. The start of the Fnaf franchise, and we're to the first game in chronological order, so I can actually kind of go into detail. But Fnaf 4, or the minigames at least, and Elizabeth Afton is born, William's golden child. There's a video I'll leave in the description. I forget the name of the person it's by. I haven't been that deep in the FNAF community this last month or so, and I'm just sort of getting back into it. But yeah, it's by not real name. I just looked it up, and I'll leave the link in the description. I really liked that video. I'm gonna rewatch it now as I eat my chicken tenders, and then yep, I recommend it. William and Henry are making more money than they know what to do with from Fredbear's and Freddy's, having a few accidents like spring lock failures, but otherwise being able to dodge and cover up any lawsuits that come their way. They did implement a rule where you need to get proper training from one of the owners before you can wear the suits now. There were a few major triggers like moisture and tons of movement without being fully wound up, but from this point on, there were no accidents related to the spring locks. Then it occurred, the infamous day, Dave's birthday party. William couldn't save him this time. Not. The previous week, his older brother's bullying had become the worst it's ever been. Michael was always forced to babysit Dave, so he always had a bit of fun pranking his brother. He and his friends tormented Dave for being afraid of the animatronics, using masks and other things to sneak up on him and scare him. Yeah, it all came from something he saw in the back rooms. His father stuffing a man in the suit, or an employee, getting him ready to go out and perform. But that's not how he saw it. He interpreted it as William killing the man. But on his birthday, Michael forced Dave to get closer and closer to Fredbear and give him a big old kiss. Then it happened. The spring locks went off. The moisture of the tears caused Fredbear's spring locks to go off. It wasn't supposed to happen. He chomped down on the boy's skull with enough force to completely destroy the frontal lobe and sent him to the hospital. It was a coma. Dave laid in that hospital bed for a week before dying, hanging on to life with everything he had. The last few words he received were from the people who killed him and his father. A simple "I am sorry" from his brother, Michael, filled with utter grief as the family fell apart. And "I will put you back together," coming from William. A promise from a father. Prior to what employees call the Great Bite, security was boosted by Henry over the next few months in Freddy's, with Fredbear's actually shutting down, retiring the suits in the Freddy's safe rooms. This would not happen again if he was gonna say anything about it. This was with a security puppet and wristbands it could keep track of, specifically a green one he gave to his child, Charlie Emily. Around the same time, Michael would start to see hallucinations of "It's me" on his walls at night from the trauma and the Fredbear suit staring at him through his window. This was actually all Dave watching over him and letting out his rage, now haunting the Fredbear suit. Sometimes Michael would even sneak out to his brother's grave to make sure he was dead. This made William angry, his child disobeying him and sneaking out at night, putting themselves in danger. William fell into a deep depression after the death of his son, and started going to a bar named Junior's, coping with alcohol where he would just think about everything Henry's done to him, blaming him for his son's death. The Springlocks were the thing that killed him after all, and those were Henry's creation. After a few too many drinks, William would be kicked out of Junior's, where he was told to go home, but a rage came over him. A burning rage engulfed his soul that led him to the pizzeria that night. He had a score to settle with Henry. A drunk William Afton found himself at Freddy's, where a young Charlie Emily awaited him. He was sneaking into the back alley to get back inside, knowing that's how Henry always got in. This was after a few bullies trapped her out, and the security puppet was blocked in a box. William saw a golden opportunity, and with all his built-up rage, snuck up behind her and just started beating her in the rain. Blood and water running together into the sewer drains around them, as she just cried and screamed, unable to do anything about it. Nobody could even hear her over the children, animatronics, and music inside, on top of the already pouring rain. William dropped her lifeless body next to the trash. It felt amazing. The rain covered his tracks too. Sweet and perfect revenge on Henry. The death hit Henry hard. Both owners of the restaurant now had to grieve after what Henry did. Later that night, the security puppet went out into the rain and slowly dragged herself to Charlie, trying to save her before holding her tightly with the rain destroying the animatronic. This would result in the first possession of an animatronic in the series. The metal mesh combined with the human flesh created a substance called remnant, allowing for Charlie's soul to live on through the puppet. It even changed the appearance, purple tears now running down the puppet's face. With both owners having children die in the restaurant during the past year, Freddy's was shut down. With no proof it was William, nobody was charged. End. Chapter 1. The Origins of a Killer. Before I get into this, chapter 1.5, the missing children's incident, I'd like to go over Remnant and Agony real quick. Remnant is what bonds a soul to metal, and agony is the most intense emotion a human can feel. It's what gives intelligence. The metal the agony is connecting to must have some sort of intelligence capability, so someone can't bond to like a bullet in a war. A lot of that was just personal notes I'd taken a while back, which I was happy enough with to convert it over into this script. Everything after this point is new, so I'll try a different writing style, a fresh one. Over the next few years, a lot happened. Both Fazbear and Fredbear's fully shut down after 2 deaths of children of the owners. The entire brand would fall into obscurity. Miss Afton ran away in grief to get away from everything. She lost her child, and her husband had become abusive and neglectful of his family. Michael would stay in contact with one of his old friends, Jeremy, but they weren't particularly close. William managed to pass Henry in engineering and started development on a personal project, Afton Robotics. William became anxious and put security cameras everywhere to watch his kids. Since his wife was gone, they wouldn't be hurt again. He did this from a bunker he'd begun building as sort of a workshop to construct animatronics. Chapter 1.5. The Missing Children's Incident. June 1987, Utah. Henry opened a restaurant without William due to a gut suspicion he had. He lacked any real evidence, but he thinks William is connected to Charlie's death. The new and improved Freddy Fazbear's Pizza has facial recognition technology connected to a criminal database. He also brought back his old security puppet for some reason. He felt almost a familial connection to it. Now called the Marionette, it wandered and watched over children in the prize corner. William was strictly banned, added into the database to be attacked on sight by all the animatronics, even the Wizards. Henry would use Mimic AI and the cameras, which he would use to develop personalities for Indos. They'd watch and learn from animatronics. We never get to see this used due to the short duration the pizzeria was open though. Jeremy Fitzgerald, Bonnie Bro, would go on to work here as the night guard in Fnaf 2, and would tell Michael about how crazy the animatronics would get because of their software. And since Michael was the son of one of the owners, it was just who he went to. The animatronics thought he was a criminal sneaking in, but the withers were weird. It was almost as if Golden Freddy, the old Fredbear suit, recognized him, and the others had been retrofitted to be able to move like the toys in case William ever got in. After just 5 days, William got angry about Henry opening a restaurant with his characters without even telling him. He was mad that Henry would suspect him too, after how long they'd been friends, even though he did kill Charlie. William snuck past the animatronics and managed to find his old suit in the safe room, Spring Bonnie, to lure the kids into parts and service for a party. Employees assumed someone was just using the suits for a party, and Henry wasn't even at the location, as we can see with this phone call I'm about to play.
Hello. What on earth are you doing there? Didn't you get the memo? The place is closed down, at least for a while. Someone used one of the suits. We had a spare in the back, a yellow one. Someone used it. Now none of them are acting right. Listen, just finish your shift. It's safer than trying to leave in the middle of the night. We have one more event scheduled for tomorrow, a birthday. You'll be on day shift. Wear your uniform. Stay close to the animatronics and make sure they don't hurt anyone, okay? For now, just make it through the night. When the place eventually opens again, I'll probably take the night shift myself. Okay, good night and good luck.
William went on to trap them into the withered animatronics. He had a blast, role-playing as Spring Bonnie and hunting each one of them down like prey. Susie was the first, Chica. He was the most gentle with her, but got more aggressive each kill, eventually beating the last one down aggressively, Cassidy, the one he shouldn't have killed, but he realized he ran out of animatronics besides the Fredbear, putting Cassidy and him before she had even died. The spring locks going off due to the blood and her resistance against William, making her death even worse than what it would have been. William would manage to escape, someone else getting charged in his place. After the event, Charlie would make her way into the back to help their souls live on through the animatronics, one by one giving them each life once more. Henry quickly made it to the pizzeria as it was shut down and raided by the police. They couldn't find the bodies, the children were just missing. All they could gather was someone used the Spring Bonnie suit after multiple witnesses said they saw the children with him. It had to be someone who knew how the spring locks worked, an employee of a previous location. Jeremy went back to the location that night, not getting the memo that they actually shut down temporarily. Henry tried to reopen Freddy's for one last day. They had a birthday party scheduled after all. The animatronics acting wild after the previous day. Jeremy lost his frontal lobe to Mangle trying to put her back together. This was the infamous Bite of 87. It was the final straw, HR shutting the new Freddy's down only after a week themselves. The following night, Michael snuck into the pizzeria to see why his father was so obsessed with these animatronics. Finding himself in the security office around midnight with no instructions besides what Jeremy had told him. He couldn't get out until 6 a.m. The animatronics were surrounding him from all directions, thinking he was William. This is custom night. It was intriguing to say the least, what these animatronics could do. The Withers had now been possessed and Golden Freddy was double possessed. Freddy was a boy named Gabriel. Bonnie was ironically enough a boy named Jeremy. Chica was Susie. Foxy was Fritz. And Golden Freddy held Dave Afton and Cassidy inside him. Two angry spirits who could not forget what they had gone through. After Michael returned home, he mentioned what happened with the animatronics and how they acted almost like they were alive. He heard them groan too. Then mentioning the previous hallucinations with that same Fredbear animatronics, and William began to believe those stories Michael always made up, specifically with the Fredbear watching him. Could his son, David, still be alive? Unfortunately, Will had no way of accessing these old animatronics. The pizzeria had been completely boarded up, and the animatronics were probably being transported to a storage facility. So he began development on a set of animatronics called the Fun Times. Could there be something more to what he has done? Did he allow those innocent souls to live on by stuffing them into the suits? It was also curious. Circus Baby's Pizza World would be his next big piece of work under the company called Afton Robotics, a sister company to Fazbear Entertainment, a sister location to the Freddy Fazbears set up to open in the 90s. Chapter 2, Michael Afton. This is where the first book in the series would start. It would start with it either being at the end with the missing children's incident or right at Fnaf 1. William's origin is shown through subtle hints and dialogue, like in the games, or a prequel could be made following just William. It'd follow Mike until Pizza Sim, with a few parts following William and Henry. One more thing I'll add is I'll be releasing audiobooks. I think I already said that, but I'll make sure on my channel, getting my friends and people who audition to voice the characters, which I think will be fun. This chapter will cover FNAF 1, FNAF 4, Sister Location, FNAF 3, and Pizza Sim, and Michael's search for his father and the other animatronics to set their souls free from the eternal suffering inside those suits. Utah, 1993. This will probably be somewhat of a prologue for the Sister Location section, with a similar scene to Domino Animation's Sister Location animation. That's a mouthful. Link in the description. I have also been debating with myself if this comes before or after FNAF 1, but I've decided before. Circus Babies was set to open showcasing a new set of animatronics with peculiar design choices, as noted by its technician.
There's no doubting what you've achieved on a technical level. These are clearly state-of-the-art. There are just certain design choices that were made for these robots that we don't fully understand. We were hoping that you could shed some light on those.
These animatronics weren't just built for one purpose, being built for something more, for science. William built these with the intention of luring children. He built them to evolve his knowledge. Each animatronic had its own unique feature that let them capture children to see if they'd possess the animatronics. Circus Babies opened. It was immediately a hit among the kids. There were some old faces from Freddy's, but the star of the show, Circus Baby, was the most popular.
She can dance. She can sing. She's equipped with a built-in helium tank for inflating balloons right at her fingertips. She can take song requests. She can even dispense ice cream.
With all due respect, those aren't the design choices we were curious about, Mr. Afton.
Everyone adored her, especially a little girl, Elizabeth Afton. Baby was programmed to count how many kids were in the room, and once there was only one, she would lure them in with promises of ice cream, then capture them in her stomach with a small scooper. Elizabeth was always told to stay away from the animatronics, unless William was around, especially Baby, but she didn't listen. William had designed the whole thing after her. He even told her Baby was built just for her, so it didn't make any sense. Why couldn't she go near Baby? She waited until Will was busy and nobody was in Baby's room to sneak in and go up close to her, climbing on the stage, as Baby told her to come closer, holding up ice cream. And she did.
Something happened when there was one. A little girl, standing by herself. I was no longer myself, and I stopped singing. My stomach opened, and there was ice cream. I couldn't move, at least, not until she stepped closer. There was screaming for a moment, but only for a moment.
Everything went on as normal the rest of the day, until William realized Elizabeth was missing. Finding himself in a panic, running around the building at the end of the day, after everyone had left. "Elizabeth!" he called out, until he wandered into Circus Baby's auditorium, Baby staring at him with her eyes. They were designed to be blue, but they were green. Was he going crazy? Elizabeth? Circus Babies closed the next day due to gas leaks, but it was really the death of his daughter. He needed more. He didn't want to experiment on his own daughter. He needed the old animatronics with his previous victims. November came around. Henry tried to restore the withered animatronics in another reopening of Freddy's. It was all he could do to afford the bombing of the new Freddy's. He was forced to sell the toys for parts and to hardcore collectors alike. After the bite of 87 happening the same week as the MCI, the reputation of Fazbear's has completely plummeted. This new old Freddy's was a last-ditch effort to restore the brand and maybe lure his daughter, the puppet, who is now wandering Utah alone while Afton Robotics kicked off with their Circus Babies rental service. Michael Afton, 24 years old. He'd lost both his siblings now, held back by the guilt of what he'd done to his brother, but also curious about what he saw back in 87. And again, his curiosity with the animatronics, his father spending most of his days working on the animatronics. Plus, he could maybe find out more about what happened to his sister. The withered animatronics intrigued Michael greatly after what he saw, especially Fredbear, and finding out they'd been reused for the new pizzeria had him hooked. He put in an application under the name Mike Schmidt, knowing Henry and his father aren't on the best terms. Michael got the job. He'd be working the night shift, which he actually kinda liked. Let him explore the pizzeria on his own. It was the same building they used for the old Freddy's, so it was kinda nostalgic too. And it let him get a closer look at the animatronics without being seen. His first night on the job, a man named Ralph called him. He had worked the week before, his shift, and gave him the basics, saying the animatronic servos would get locked up if they didn't move around after they got retrofitted with the toy technology. Don't let them get into his office because they'll think Mike is an endoskeleton, yada yada, the basics. Ralph had worked at the older pizzerias as well, the new Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria and Fredbear's. Usually as the security guard, for some reason Michael's hallucinations came back stronger than before and happening constantly. He even began to hear the faint sound of his brother's voice alongside them. For the first couple nights he thought it was just sleep deprivation, till he began to hear groaning from the animatronics, and found Fredbear in his office. The animatronics weren't roaming just because of retrofitted technology. It was something more. Michael, deep into the week, realized they were haunted by the victims of the MCI, and he wasn't just crazy, but how? They thought Michael was their killer. He began to read newspaper articles changing in his so-called hallucinations, later coming to the realization it was his brother. He was Fredbear and altering his vision. He was calling out to his brother all those years. The "it's me's" was him saying it was actually him. In Ralph's final recording on Mike's fourth shift, Michael heard him die to the animatronics, but he still needed to know more, so he began to dig deeper during his shifts. Henry would begin to notice tampering with the animatronics and begin to create reasons to fire Mike, also putting together that it was Michael Afton. After Michael's seventh shift, he was fired for odor and tampering with the animatronics. Henry couldn't let the business shut down before he lured his daughter back to the establishment, but an opportunity would arise that was even better than that. Mike would go home and report his findings at the new old Freddy's to William, apart from Fredbear potentially being Dave. No, he knew he was Dave. Will was ecstatic. There was a golden opportunity in front of him. He just had to grab it. After Michael's week, there were no more security guards. That was part of the reason Henry was hiring them, just to keep William out at night. Since there were no more security guards, William snuck in and extracted each of the 4 animatronics for their endoskeletons. It was the old Freddy's location, so he knew all the safe rooms, which the animatronics couldn't enter. William put the endoskeletons in the back of his truck and drove away to Afton Robotics, where he melted each of them down and put them into his own animatronics through the scooper. As soon as the molten life entered Funtime's Freddy's wires, He started convulsing and freaking out. The souls had fused and been split. But even so, William had truly done it. William had brought dreams to life, and was one step closer to finding a path to immortality. Maybe even one day, he could create a life with his son again. Dave could be brought back. He also put the juice he was calling Remnant into Ballora and Funtime Foxy before heading back to the pizzeria to look for any endoskeleton parts he missed. Slowly making his way to the back, in the safe room, walking over the animatronic shells, all that was left was his spring bonnie. He walked over to it one more time. It was a bit moist and starting to mold, but still spring bonnie. His little mission was to no avail. The golden Freddy suit was missing or hidden, so William began to leave the safe room before 4 spirits blocked his path out, and another walked in between them and pointed at William. How were they able to move without the suits? William asked himself. As the main one began chasing him, she was angry, vengeful. William knew it was Cassidy, and he could only think of one thing to do. William rushed to the spring bonnie suit and put it on. He was in power again and began laughing at Cassidy. It was the suit he used to kill them after all. His laughter carried on, and Cassidy just stared at him when sharp metal hinges went into William's torso, sending him to the floor, blood convulsing from all his wounds. The spring legs were moist. They weren't properly round. He didn't realize in his panic. They were piercing all his major organs. But he wouldn't die. He knew enough about Remnant to guarantee that. The spirits all faded away, and William managed to stay alive till the next morning when Henry found him, still twitching. William pleaded Henry to help him, but he looked at the animatronics, then back at William with a small grin, before sealing the safe room and mandating that all safe rooms must be sealed off. William could stay there and rot. He'd taken all the children had left. After this event, Fazbear's fell into obscurity for 30 years, Henry letting go of the franchise. He assumed the children had been put to rest as well. He still wanted to find his daughter, so he began development of a suit capable of capturing her. He called it the Lore, Encapsulate, Fuse, Transport, and Extract, or Lefty for short. Utah, 1996. William and Elizabeth have been missing for 3 years now. Michael left to live on his own. His father did say there was a place somewhere, so Michael did what any reasonable man would do. He went into his father's office and threw all his stuff. William knew there was danger to what he'd be doing, so he made precautions for Michael to find. If he were to go missing or die, he wouldn't want Elizabeth to be trapped for years on end now, would he? William left a note for his son, Michael. If I ever go missing, put Elizabeth back together and free her. With the address to Afton Robotics next to it. I know a lot of evidence says it's underneath the Afton house, but there were actual technicians there, so, yep, they're all there. Michael, being the missing owner's son, had no problem getting a job as a fast technician, but the traumas of what happened in the Fnaf 1 pizzeria still haunted him, and what he did to his brother with an animatronic. He's now horrified of animatronics. It was utter karma for the fear he put into his brother's soul over the animatronics. Michael even had nightmares every night of them hunting him down, and he has since his family went missing. Fredbear was in there too. He was the most dangerous because he was what traumatized Michael the most. The bite of 83, and everything that happened in Freddy's. It was all too much, but he had to know more. What happened to his family? And what did William mean when he said put Elizabeth back together? Michael never got to come face to face with the fun times. He only knew them from circus babies and a few ads he'd seen about the rental service. Before Michael knew it, he'd already stepped into the elevator and began heading down to the rentals. Down to my grave, Michael even jokes. Michael continuously went down every night, following the guide of Baby, saying the hand unit was lying to him, and he believed her after she proved herself right at multiple times. During these nights, Michael put together what his father had been doing, and figured out he wasn't the man he appeared to be on the outside. Besides Baby, the animatronics thought he was their killer. He shared their face with William, but Baby knew better. She knew Michael from somewhere. She told Michael about the day she was on stage before the pizzeria was shut down, and Michael was starstruck. Elizabeth was Circus Baby. His father killed her by accident, meaning to kill someone else. He'd found the blueprints for the fun times during this week, and just put everything together. His father killed the 5 kids. He killed Charlie. He's the reason Elizabeth went missing. He was playing with life, playing God. And he thinks he knows what drove William down that path. His brother's death. It was all his fault. Michael blamed himself and vowed to set the souls of the innocent free. And he'd kill his father. Something inside him told him William was still alive somewhere. His first mission, though, was to set his sister's soul free. Elizabeth kept telling Michael more. They'd tried to escape before, but were caught. He had no idea the things they went through, the experiments, the everything. Michael had yet to put together the children's spirits were in the other fun times. Michael's 5th night came around, and he had some maintenance to do on Baby. There was something wrong with her, and she was going to be scooped. She tricked him into going into the scooping room, locking the door behind him. There stood a tall animatronic staring at him through the window. Michael would help them escape. Michael pleads, telling them he just wants to help them, but they didn't listen. They needed to look like Michael. Innard's tentacles came from the vents and held him in place. That's what they called themselves now, the Innard. Elizabeth promised it'd only hurt for a moment, and everything went red. But he wasn't dead. He was somehow alive. The scooper had remnant left over on it, and it was injected into his body. Innard entered Michael and used his husk for a few days before it turned completely purple and couldn't hide them anymore. You could even see the wires coiling through his rotten flesh, so Innard left and hid in the sewer. Michael just laid there for a moment after they left before realizing he wasn't dead still. But he should be. It seemed he had only one thing left to do. He was going to find his father.
Father, it's me, Michael. I did it. I found it. It was right where you said it would be. They were all there. They didn't recognize me at first, but then they thought I was you. And I found her. I put her back together, just like you asked me to. She's free now. But something is wrong with me. I should be dead, but I'm not. I've been living in shadows. There is only one thing left for me to do now. I'm going to come find you. I'm going to come find you.
Utah, 2023. Michael had been searching for his father for over 20 years now to no avail, living in shadows when something related to Fazbear's popped up in the newspaper. Fazbear's Fright, a horror attraction using childhood nostalgia and crimes committed at Fazbear's. Michael worked for a few weeks, reminded by his past, and brought some of the nightmares back. The crew liked him because of how authentic his cosplay was, and even said he'd work the day shift when they opened. They could only find the shells to display because of what William obviously did with the endos. A few weeks into the job, the crew told Michael they found a real one, sealed away in one of the old back rooms, and put in that Tuesday. It was the old Spring Bonnie's one. Thank God. Michael couldn't take another look at that old Fredbear, even one more time. But how could Spring Bonnie even stand up at this point? How could he function? The cameras weren't easy to see through, but he could tell the animatronic knew he was there and was coming for him. When he got to the window, he saw the corpse inside, the mold covering, and strange silver eyes. Michael. The sound of William's voice came through. It was his father. Michael quickly activated the lure they installed in the cameras. The suit must have been programmed to follow the sounds of children. His father must have died to the spring locks, and the magic energy inside them both is keeping them alive and from completely rotting. After Michael found his father, he secretly rigged the wires in the building to light. He had an exit door right next to his office, so he would be able to escape almost instantly. Maybe this would kill his father once and for all, but he still had a job to do. He had to set the souls free of the children his father had killed. William and Michael both escaped from opposite sides of the building. William was damaged, but not beyond repair. Sightings of the Springtrap, Puppet, Molten Freddy, and Scrap Baby were now at an all-time high, plus Michael coming out of the shadows. So Michael, too. Henry caught word of this, and had to put an end to everything. He knew these sightings were true. He only now began to understand the depravity of the situation, and how he had to help foster it. It was time for their story to end. It was time to set the souls of everyone free. But he needed a lure.
It's only now that I understand the depth of the depravity of this creature, this monster that I unwillingly helped to create. As if what he had already done wasn't enough. He found a new way to desecrate, to humiliate, to destroy. As if the suffering wasn't enough, the loss of innocence, the loss of everything to so many people. Small souls trapped in prisons of my making, now set to new purpose, and used in ways I never thought imaginable. He lured them all back to a familiar place, back with familiar tricks. He brought them all together. Are they still aware? I hope not. It keeps me awake at night. I could make myself sleep, but not yet. Not until I undo what he has done and heal this wound. A wound first inflicted on me, but then one that I let bleed out to cause all of this. He set some kind of trap. I don't know what it was, but he led them there again. He overpowered them again, and he robbed them of the only thing that they had again. I don't know how those tiny breaths of life came to inhabit those machines, but they will never find rest now, not like this. I have to call them all back, all of them, together in one place.
Utah, 2024. Henry contacted and told Michael the plan. Michael would work as a manager while Henry lured each of them there and locked them into the basement vents. Saturday would be the day he set them free. The whole pizzeria was nothing more than a facade built to be burnt down. He tracked down Charlie and managed to lure her to the lefty suit, and each of the animatronics slowly made their way to the restaurant each night. Charlie was the hardest to get, like she'd always been. First it was the missing kids, or Molten Freddy, then it was William, then it was Elizabeth, and then it was Charlie, all in one place. It was time for their story to end. It was designed for them to not even realize that they're trapped. Henry's plans were in fruition, but Elizabeth saw it as a gift. All those souls in one little place.
You played right into our hands. Did you really think that this job just fell out of the sky for you? No. This was a gift for us. You gathered them all together in one place, just like he asked you to. All of those little souls in one place, just for us. A gift. Now we can do what we were created to do and be complete. I will make you proud, Daddy. Watch, listen, and be full.
Connection terminated. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Elizabeth, if you still even remember that name. But I'm afraid you've been misinformed. You are not here to receive a gift, nor have you been called here by the individual you assume, although you have indeed been called. You have all been called here, into a labyrinth of sounds and smells, misdirection and misfortune. A labyrinth with no exit, a maze with no prize. You don't even realize that you are trapped. Your lust for blood has driven you in endless circles, chasing the cries of children in some unseen chamber, always seeming so near, yet somehow out of reach. But you will never find them. None of you will. This is where your story ends. And to you, my brave volunteer, who somehow found this job listing not intended for you. Although there was a way out planned for you, I have a feeling that's not what you want. I have a feeling that you are right where you want to be. I am remaining as well. I am nearby. This place will not be remembered, and the memory of everything that started this can finally begin to fade away, as the agony of every tragedy should. And to you monsters trapped in the corridors, be still, and give up your spirits. They don't belong to you. For most of you, I believe there is peace, and perhaps more, waiting for you after the smoke clears. Although for one of you, the darkest pit of hell has opened to swallow you whole, so don't keep the devil waiting, friend. My daughter, if you can hear me, I knew you would return as well. It's in your nature to protect the innocent. I'm sorry that on that day, the day you were shut out and left to die, no one was there to lift you up into their arms, the way you lifted others into yours. And then, what became of you? I should have known you wouldn't be content to disappear. Not my daughter. I couldn't save you then, so let me save you now. It's time to rest, for you, and for those you have carried in your arms. This ends, for all of us, in communication.
And all their little souls were set free. Michael, Elizabeth, Dave, Henry, Charlie, Fritz, Jeremy, Gabriel, and Susie, all set free to rest. There was only one who couldn't let go. Cassidy, fueled by a burning hatred, created a reality with pure rage alone just for William and her, where she would torture him forever and ever with his own creations, killing him over and over and over again, taunting him every time. Cassidy would never let him rest. She would never let him go. She was the one he should not have killed. A fate worse than death. And that's the end of Five Nights at Freddy's. If you enjoyed the video, I'd appreciate it if you subscribed. I'd love to do more content in the future, so showing me you liked the video with a like would mean the world to me. And if it was low quality, I'm sorry, it'll only get better from here as I learn. Wait, there's more? What are you Oh.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Fazbear Entertainment would like you to put your hands together for the one, the only, Freddy Fazbear.